My best friend Jimmy bought 2 fishing rods in the spring of 1987. Still in the plastic, tags on them. He put them in his garage and said, "Hal, the day I retire, we are going up to Lake Michigan, and we are not coming back until we catch something worth bragging about." He said that for 22 years. Jimmy retired on a Thursday, had a heart attack on a Saturday. Those 2 rods were still in his garage when his son sold the house. Still in the plastic. Still had the tags on them. My name is Harold. Everyone calls me Hal. I am 91 years old. I worked the floor at Inland Steel in Gary, Indiana for 38 years. And I am going to tell you something today that is going to sit with you. Because what Jimmy did, you are doing it right now. I can tell just by the fact that you are sitting there watching this instead of doing the thing you already know you need to do. Jimmy and me grew up together. We were 9 years old throwing rocks at freight cars on the south side of Gary. I knew that man for over 80 years. He was the kind of man who had a plan for everything. Always had the next thing figured out. He used to sit at my kitchen table, right here at a table just like this one, and say, "Hal, when I retire, I'm going to do it all. Take Barbara to see her sister in Phoenix. Fix the back porch. Learn to play the guitar that's been sitting in the corner since 1979. He had a whole list, kept it in his wallet. I saw that list once, 14 things. After he passed, I asked Barbara if she found it. She said she looked. Never did find it. 14 things that died in a wallet somewhere. Jimmy was 59 years old. He had been at that plant 31 years. The week before he retired, his foreman threw him a party in the break room. Chocolate cake. Paper streamers. Everybody signed a card. Jimmy cried a little. Not sad crying. The kind of crying a man does when he finally believes the thing he has been waiting for is actually going to happen. I shook his hand at that party and he grabbed my arm and said, "Hal, Lake Michigan, 2 weeks." I said, "I'll be ready." He said, "Bring the good lures." I said, "I will." Saturday morning, his wife called me at 6:30 in the morning. I knew before I picked up the phone. I do not know how I knew. I just knew. He waited 31 years to start living. Got 2 days. Now here's a part I am not proud of. I watched Jimmy do that my whole life. I watched him put everything in the after. After the mortgage. After the kids are grown. After I retire. After. I watched him. And I shook my head. And I said to myself, "Hal, you are not going to be like that. You hear me? You are not going to be that man." And then I went home and I was exactly that man. My daughter Loretta was in 8th grade when she got picked to give the graduation speech. The whole school. She worked on that speech for 6 weeks. She practiced it at the dinner table every single night. The morning of the graduation, she came into the kitchen and she was wearing her good dress and her hair was done up, and she looked at me and she said, "Daddy, are you coming tonight?" I said, "Of course I am coming." I said I would not miss it for anything in this world. That afternoon, my foreman called me in, said we had a situation on the floor. A whole run of steel had come out wrong and they needed every supervisor they had. I stayed until 9 o'clock at night. I told myself I would make it up to her. Loretta is 63 years old now. She has 3 children of her own, and she lives 40 minutes from here, and we talk every Sunday. Last Christmas, her youngest asked her, "Mama, what was the best thing you ever did in school?" And Loretta said, "Well, I gave a speech once." And her youngest said, "What was it about?" And Loretta said she didn't remember exactly. She said she just remembered looking out at all those faces, and there was one empty seat in the fourth row that she could not stop looking at. She did not look at me when she said it, not angry. Just the way you say a thing that healed over so long ago it is not a wound anymore. Just a fact. Just the shape your life took. I was holding my coffee cup, and I set it down very carefully on the table, because I did not trust my hands right then. That is the price of later. You do not just miss the moment. You get written out of the story. The story keeps going. It just goes without you in it. Now let me tell you about the cassette tape. The school recorded Loretta's speech. One of the other parents had a camera and they recorded the whole thing. About a week after graduation, they sent us a copy on a cassette tape. I put it in the kitchen drawer and I said, "I am going to watch that this weekend." This weekend became next month. Next month became next year. I moved that tape through 3 houses and 2 kitchen renovations, and I never once put it in the machine. Last April, I found it in a box in the back of my closet, the label on it in Loretta's handwriting. She must have labeled it herself before she gave it to me. Her 8th grade handwriting, big round letters, the way kids write when they are still learning how to be serious. I sat on the edge of my bed for a long time holding that tape. I do not own anything that plays a cassette tape anymore. I called a place in Indianapolis that transfers old tapes to digital, sent it to them in a padded envelope with a check for $47. 3 weeks later, they sent me back a file. I listened to it on my phone in this chair at 11 o'clock at night. 3 minutes and 40 seconds. That is how long her speech was. She talked about the future, about not being afraid of hard things, about how her father always said the floor of that steel plant was the most honest place in the world, because the steel did not care who you were. It only cared what you did. She quoted me, my own words, in her 8th grade speech that I never heard. I cannot tell you what I felt sitting in this chair listening to that. I am 91 years old, and I have been through things, and I do not cry easy. But I sat in this chair at 11 at night, and I let myself feel the full weight of what 40 years of later actually costs. 3 minutes and 40 seconds. That is all it would have taken. Now I am going to give you 4 things, not advice from a book. I paid for these with years I cannot get back. These 4 things cost me everything. I am giving them to you for nothing. First, the people who need you are not going to wait forever. I know you know that, but you do not feel it, not yet. You will not feel it until the day you reach for your phone to call somebody and you remember. There is no number to dial anymore. And that silence is the loudest thing you will ever hear in your life. My son Marcus is 67 years old. He lives in Cleveland. We talk on the phone, but we do not see each other enough. And we both know it, and neither one of us says it out loud. Last month I called him on a Tuesday for no reason. Just called him. He picked up and there was a long pause, and then he said, "Dad, is everything okay? Because that is the world we built together. A world where I only call on Tuesdays if something is wrong. That is what years of later does to a relationship. It trains the people you love to be afraid when they hear your voice. Call them. Not on the birthday. not at Christmas, on a Tuesday, for no reason. That is the whole thing. That is all of it. Second, stop performing. You are so busy trying to look like you have it all figured out that you do not have time to actually figure anything out. I stood on that plant floor for 38 years, being the man who had it together. The man the younger guys looked up to. The man who never showed doubt. You know what that cost me? It cost me the friendships where somebody might have told me the truth. Nobody tells the man who has it together that he is making a mistake. They just watch. Jimmy never told me. I never told Jimmy. Two men who knew each other for 50 years, and we never once sat at that kitchen table and said, "Brother, are you actually living the life you want?" We talked about the bears. We talked about the plant. We talked about everything except the thing underneath everything. Nobody is watching you near as close as you think they are. They are too busy worrying about themselves. Stop spending your one life performing for an audience that is not even paying attention. Third, rest is not the enemy. You have been told since you were old enough to understand words that busy means important. That tired means you earned something. I believed that lie for 50 years. I wore my exhaustion like a badge. Worked doubles when I did not have to. Took on extra when I should have gone home. Came home to a dark house so many nights I stopped noticing it was dark. You know what I have more of right now than anything else? Regret about the evenings. Not the big moments. The evenings. The regular Tuesday evenings I spent at the plant instead of at the table. Those evenings stacked up into years, and those years stacked up into a life that my family lived mostly without me, even though I was technically present. Sit down. Look at your life. Ask yourself honestly, is this the life I chose? Or is this just the life that happened to me while I was too busy to notice? Because there is a difference, and only you know which one it is. Fourth, put the weight down. I carried anger at my father for 23 years. He was not a present man. He was not a warm man. He worked and he did not show up the way a father is supposed to show up. And I dragged that behind me for 2 decades like a chain. When he died, I went to that funeral with all of it still in my chest. All that anger. And nowhere to put it anymore. I stood at that grave and I felt cheated. Cheated out of the argument I never got to have. The apology he never gave. 23 years I gave to a man who was not even there to receive it. Putting it down is not saying what they did was right. Putting it down is just acknowledging that you are the one still carrying it. That weight is yours now. It was never going anywhere. The only question is whether you want to keep hauling it until you die. I put it down sometime around 80. Too late. But I put it down. My knees hurt every morning. My hands are not steady like they used to be. My eyes need 3 different pairs of glasses for 3 different things. But I wake up every morning in this house and I am not running from anything. I am not chasing anything. I am not performing for anybody. Jimmy's fishing rods, 2 of them, still in the plastic. I used to think about those rods and feel the sadness of them, the waste of them. Lately, I think about them differently. I think about the fact that Jimmy bought them. He wanted that trip badly enough to go to the store and pick them out and bring them home and put them in the garage where he could see them. He had the dream. He just never made it the plan. The difference between a dream and a plan is a date on a calendar. Write something down today. One thing. The thing you have been saying later to. Do not explain it. Do not justify it. Just write it down right now while you are sitting there. Because I have learned in 91 years that the moment you say a thing out loud, it stops being something you are waiting for, and it starts being something you are doing. The rods are still in the plastic. Yours don't have to be. That is all I have got.